I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, but there I was, staring at my laptop with a sinking feeling in my gut. Her name's Lisa. We'd been together for 6 years, married for 3. She's the kind of woman who can be bitchy, sarcastic, and downright mean when she's in a mood, but I always thought that was just her personality. She's also extremely manipulative, always lying her way out of trouble, and I guess I never really suspected just how far she'd go. We met at a conference back in college, instantly clicked, and somehow I convinced myself she was the one. She was a smart woman working as a project manager for a tech company, and I was in aerospace engineering working at the local observatory. Our lives intertwined perfectly, her love of science and my obsession with planetary defense, which is how I ended up working on asteroid deflection technology. Honestly, I thought we were happy, or at least I did until a few months ago. It started with little things: missed calls, late nights at her office, strange messages I'd catch when I was snooping around her phone. She'd brush my concerns off with that annoying bitchy smirk, telling me I was paranoid that she was working late on some important project and that I was overthinking everything. But I was. Something was off. I noticed her phone kept changing passwords and she was always deleting her messages. It was like she could see I was catching on. Then I noticed her behavior shifted even more. She became distant, snapping at me over small things, avoiding intimacy and lying about where she was. I'd come home from work and find her glued to her laptop, typing away furiously. One night I caught her sneaking her phone into the bathroom and I snuck a look. That's when I saw the messages: flirtatious, intimate. Not just casual work chat, but outright sex talk with someone named Mike. I remember reading her saying, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible. You make me forget what real sex feels like with him." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mind was racing, trying to process how she could do this to me. She always said she loved me, that I was her world, and there she was cheating on me with some guy she met, apparently through her work, another project she was supposedly working late on. It was a punch to the gut, and I didn't know what to do with the rage and hurt that flooded through me. How long had this been going on? Did she even love me anymore? Or was I just some fool she kept around while she had her fun with whoever Mike was? I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I needed to get my head straight. I started digging more, going through her emails, her social media, anything that could give me answers. That's when I found out she'd been lying about the meetings. She'd been meeting Mike, I guess, at some hotel during the weekends. She'd been sneaking out late, telling me she was at her parents' or some work event. Meanwhile, she was out with her lover, probably having sex while I was at home thinking everything was fine. The betrayal hit deep, and I felt like I'd been thrown into a nightmare. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. How could she do this? After everything I'd done for her, supporting her career, planning our future, trusting her. I'd never been the jealous type, but this was a whole new level. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly broken. I realized then that my marriage was over, at least for me. I knew I couldn't stay with someone who lied so effortlessly and clearly didn't respect me enough to be honest. I spent the night awake, just staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do next. The pain was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but think about all the things she'd said to me, all the times she'd told me she loved me, and then how easily she'd betrayed that love. I didn't sleep much that night, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to plan my next move, and I had no idea how brutal that move would be. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a mind swirling with rage and heartbreak. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan. She was manipulative, sneaky, and good at twisting things around. I needed to gather more evidence, understand exactly how deep she was into this affair, and figure out my best move. I started by going through her emails again, digging into her work files and reviewing her phone records. I didn't trust her to be honest, so I had to be thorough. What I found confirmed everything I'd suspected. She'd been sneaking around for months. The meetings, the late-night work dinners, the secret texts. But what really made my blood boil was the evidence of her lies. She told me she was working late on the asteroid deflection project, that she needed to stay at the observatory. Turns out, Her impact avoidance analyses were just cover stories. The real meetings were at a nearby hotel with Mike. I found pictures, screenshots of her text messages, some taken from her social media where she joked about avoiding impact at all costs. The way she lied so effortlessly still stung, but I also realized something else. She'd been lying to her friends, her family, everyone. She had this entire double life going on, and I was the last to know. It made me question everything: her love, her motives, our entire relationship. I knew I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. I needed to confront her, but I wanted to catch her in the act first. I decided to set a trap. I'd get her to come home early, pretend I didn't know much, and see what she'd do. I also called a private investigator I found online, someone who could confirm her whereabouts, even if she tried to cover her tracks. The plan was to catch her red-handed or at least get undeniable proof. That afternoon, I came home early from work, acting like everything was normal. I kept my phone ready, waiting for her to walk through that door. I had a small hidden camera set up in the living room, aimed at the front door, and I also kept my phone recording. I even made a quick fake argument on the phone about a business trip I was supposed to go on next week, just to give her an excuse to stay home. When she finally got there, she looked irritated, like she'd been caught in a lie just by her expression. She didn't say much, just threw her bag on the couch and snapped at me when I asked how her day was. I watched her carefully, waiting for her to slip up. I could see her trying to hide her nervousness, her glances at her phone, her fidgeting. I knew she was hiding something. Then it happened. She got a message and her face froze. She quickly tried to hide her phone, but I'd already seen it. It was from Mike, the guy she'd been cheating on me with. The message said, "Can't wait to see you tonight, be ready." She looked like she'd seen a ghost, her eyes darting around. The level of her panic was obvious. It was her cue to lie, to deny everything. She spun a story fast, telling me she'd only been texting a coworker, that it was nothing. I didn't buy it. Her lies are so obvious when she's caught off guard. I pressed her, asking for the truth, demanding she tell me what was really going on. Her bitchy attitude kicked in full force and she snapped, calling me paranoid, telling me I was crazy for suspecting her. She tried to gaslight me, saying I was just jealous, insecure, and imagining things. She even accused me of not trusting her because "you're so insecure, you need to control everything." That's when I saw it, the look in her eyes, the defiance, how she thought she could just lie her way out of this mess. I felt a mixture of fury and disgust. I had enough. I told her I knew everything, that I'd been recording her, that I had proof she'd been cheating on me with Mike. Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought she'd break down or maybe try to deny it again. But instead she just sneered and said, "Whatever, you're overreacting. This doesn't prove anything." Part of me wanted to explode, to scream at her, to tear her apart with words. But I knew that wouldn't serve any purpose. I was done believing her lies. I told her to leave, that I didn't want to see her anymore. She spat back, calling me crazy, saying I was just jealous because I wasn't enough for her. That was the moment I realized she truly believed she could get away with everything, that she'd manipulate her way out of this like she always did. As she stormed out, I felt the last of my trust evaporate. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, by someone I loved and trusted. Completely. All my dreams of a future, of building a life together, crumbled in that instant. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, numb, staring at the door she just slammed behind her. It hit me then, this wasn't just a mistake she'd made. It was a deliberate betrayal, a complete rejection of everything I thought we had. My mind started racing with how to handle this, what to do next, and how to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. After she left, I stayed frozen in the living room, staring at the empty doorway. My mind was racing, trying to process what just happened. I kept replaying the moment she stormed out, her sneering face, her dismissive words. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about her lying to my face, about her sneaking around behind my back. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal I'd never experienced before. I decided then that I couldn't just sit around and keep wondering what to do. I needed to act. First, I called the private investigator I'd hired earlier that day. I'd instructed him to gather Evidence about her meetings, her whereabouts, and anything that could prove she was cheating. I also wanted confirmation about her plans for tonight, if she was really meeting Mike. I needed hard proof to make any future decisions. While waiting for the investigator's report, I cleaned up the mess she'd left behind, her clothes, her phone, her purse. I took my time, wanting to organize my thoughts and make sure I was prepared for whatever was coming next. I knew I'd have to confront her again, but I wasn't naive enough to think I could do it without solid evidence. Besides, I wanted her to know I wasn't some naive fool. She'd underestimated me, and I was going to make her regret it. The investigator finally called back about an hour later. His report was brutal. He followed her to the hotel she'd been sneaking off to, and he got pictures of her entering with Mike late at night. He even caught her leaving early in the morning, looking disheveled and satisfied. The evidence was irrefutable. She'd been cheating on me, right under my nose for months. It hit me hard. All those nights I thought she was working late, she was out with her lover, having sex, lying and fooling everyone, including me. I felt sick. I'd been played. The trust I had in her was destroyed. I looked at the pictures, my stomach twisting with rage. How dare she do this? How dare she think she could get away with it? I'd always been the steady one, the logical guy, but deep down I just wanted to dump her stuff on the lawn, break her phone, and tell her to get lost. But I knew I had to stay calm to think this through. Revenge sounded tempting, but I wanted to be smart about it. I spent the next few hours gathering my thoughts. I realized that I had to make some decisions. Should I confront her again? Should I tell her I knew everything? Or should I just cut her out entirely? Honestly, part of me wanted to go nuclear, to make her regret every moment she ever lied to me. But another part told me to stay composed, to think about what I really wanted. While I was debating, I decided to check her social media profiles. I wanted to see if she'd slipped up or left any clues. Sure enough, there were more hints, posts about finding someone who truly understands her, and cryptic comments that suggested she was still in contact with Mike. She'd even posted a picture of a hotel lobby with a caption, "Work trip or just a little getaway." That was the final straw. She was still lying, still hiding her tracks. I knew then I couldn't let her get away with this without consequences. She thought she could manipulate me, lie to my face, and keep living her double life. That's when I started planning my revenge. Not a childish one, but something calculated, something that would make her realize I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I wanted her to feel the betrayal, the loss of control, just a fraction of what I was feeling now. I also realized I needed to talk to a lawyer. I wasn't planning to just walk away without protection. I had to understand my rights, what I was entitled to, and how to handle the financial side of things if we decided to separate. I'd been so blindsided by her betrayal that I hadn't even thought about the legal implications. That was the next step. From this point, I knew I had to keep my head clear. The pain was intense, but I couldn't let her see me break. I had to be strategic. I'd gather everything I needed, evidence, legal advice, and my own resolve, and then I would confront her again. But this time, I wouldn't be the one begging for answers. I'd be the one in control. That's what mattered now. It was about reclaiming whatever dignity I had left and making damn sure she knew the damage she'd done. The next day, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My head was pounding, and the weight of everything hit me hard. I kept thinking about what I'd found out, how deep her lies went, and the fact that she was still out there, probably with Mike, while I was left to pick up the shattered pieces of what I thought was my life. The anger was boiling now, but I knew I had to stay smart. This wasn't about some impulsive revenge. It had to be calculated, precise. I called a lawyer first thing. I explained everything: the cheating, the evidence, her lies, and the fact that I wanted to protect myself, just in case. The lawyer listened carefully, taking notes, then explained my options. I could file for divorce on grounds of infidelity, but more importantly, I needed to know about the assets, the house, and any joint accounts. I didn't want to be blindsided, and I didn't want her to get away with hiding anything. I also asked about how to serve her the papers discreetly. No need to let her know I was planning anything until I was ready. While waiting for legal advice, I kept reviewing the evidence. I couldn't get over how smooth she'd been, acting like she was the perfect wife, the devoted partner. She'd always been bitchy and manipulative, but I never saw this coming. It was like she had a second life, one I was completely shut out of. I kept wondering how many other lies I'd missed, how much she'd been hiding. The worst part was knowing she'd probably been cheating for months, maybe longer. Every time I thought I was doing good, she was out with Mike, doing whatever they did. I decided to go to the observatory where I worked, just to get some distance. Sitting there, staring at the sky, I kept thinking about the universe, how vast and indifferent it was. That's when I realized something. I'd been so caught up in her lies that I'd neglected my own life, my work, and my future. I'd let her manipulate me, and I was tired of it. I needed to take control of this mess for my own sanity. I resolved to do whatever it took to end things and to make her pay for hurting me so badly. Back at home, I started planning my next moves. I wasn't just going to file for divorce. I wanted to make sure she faced the consequences of her actions. I reached out to the private investigator again to get updates on her current plans, what hotel she was staying at, who she was with. I also drafted a message to her, but I didn't send it yet. I wanted to make sure I had all my facts straight. I knew she spin it, deny everything, or turn around and try to make me look like the crazy one. That's what she always did. Then I remembered her bitchy attitude and her lies. I thought about how she'd always been good at twisting things to her advantage. But this time I had the proof. I was ready to confront her, hopefully, sooner rather than later. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I knew her game and I was prepared for it. I also realized I needed to prepare myself emotionally. This wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about ending a chapter of my life that had turned into a nightmare. I decided to take a day to myself, get some clarity. I went out for a walk, just me and my thoughts, watching the sky and remembering the good times. It was a harsh reminder that I'd lost a lot, but I also knew that I had to focus on rebuilding. I couldn't let her destroy me completely. I'd learned that she was manipulative, selfish, and willing to lie her way through anything. But I was stronger than her, and I was done with hiding my feelings or pretending everything was okay. I also started drafting a plan for the confrontation, what I'd say, how I'd present the evidence. I knew she'd try to deny and blame, but I was ready. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't the fool she'd taken me. For that I had proof and I wasn't backing down. I'd confront her face to face, give her a chance to come clean, but I wasn't naive enough to believe she'd do so willingly. Either way, I was prepared to take control. I decided that I'd rather face the truth than keep living in her lies. It was time to end this. The day I decided to confront her finally arrived. I waited until late afternoon, giving her enough time to come home from wherever she'd been all morning, probably still with Mike, I thought bitterly. I had everything ready, the evidence, the legal papers, and a plan for how I'd handle her bullshit. I knew she'd be bitchy. She always was when she was cornered, and I was prepared for her to try to manipulate her way out of it again. But this time, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. When she walked through the door, her face was smug, like she thought she was still in control. She threw her bag down, shot me a quick glare, and I could see the flicker of annoyance in her eyes when she noticed I was sitting there, calm but serious. It was time. I looked directly at her and said, "We need to talk, and I'm not leaving until you explain everything." She scoffed, trying to play her usual game, acting dismissive like I was overreacting. "What are you talking about? I told you I've been working late. You're just paranoid and this is all a misunderstanding." Her voice was dripping with sarcasm, but I had enough. I pulled out the folder of evidence, the screenshots, the hotel receipts, everything. Her face instantly changed. Her eyes widened and her smugness dissolved into something closer to panic. "You've been spying on me," she snapped, trying to deflect. "You're crazy, this is over nothing." But I pressed on. I told her I knew about Mike, about the hotel, about her lying every step of the way. I laid it all out calmly, showing her the photos and messages. She spun around, trying to deny, and her voice turned bitchy as she snapped, "You're just jealous, that's all. You think I'm cheating because you're insecure, so now you're trying to ruin me. Grow up." She looked at me with this condescending sneer, like she thought she could just manipulate her way out of it, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I didn't care what her excuses were, I knew the truth and I was done. She got defensive and her tone turned bitchier still. You don't know anything, you're just overreacting. I've been stressed and you're making this all about you. Maybe I don't want to be married to someone so paranoid. She crossed her arms, trying to act like the victim, classic Lisa, but I knew her game. I told her I didn't want to argue, I just wanted honesty. That she needed to admit she'd been unfaithful and I was done accepting her lies. Her face twisted into a sneer. Fine, whatever, you want the truth. I've been bored. Sex with you is dead. Mike actually makes me feel alive. So yeah, I cheated and I don't give a damn what you think anymore. Her words hit like a punch to the chest. I felt my stomach drop, but I kept my composure. I expected this. I knew she was going to play the victim, try to twist everything around. I told her I'd heard enough. I pulled out the divorce papers I'd prepared, slid them across the table and told her this was the end, that I was done with her lies, her betrayal, her manipulations. I told her I'd been planning this for a while, gathering evidence, talking to a lawyer, and now it was over. I said I didn't want her back, that I deserved better than a wife who cheated, lied, and tried to gaslight her way out of the truth. Her face contorted with anger. You're a fool, she spat. You think you can just cut me out and everything will be fine. You're nothing. I'll find someone better, someone who actually gives me what I want. She stormed out of the room, but I stayed calm. I'd made my point. I knew she'd try to manipulate me again, but I wasn't going to let her. As she left, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. I knew this was the end of us. I'd lost the woman I thought I loved. But at least now I was in control. I'd faced her lies head-on and I was ready to move on. I'd learned that people like Lisa don't change. They only reveal their true selves when they think they're safe. And I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. I was done playing her game. It was time to rebuild, even if it hurt like hell. In the days that followed, everything changed. The house felt emptier than ever, yet somehow lighter, like I'd finally taken a deep breath after holding it for too long. The evidence I gathered, the confrontation, it all left me drained but also free. I started the legal process for divorce, knowing with certainty there was no coming back from this kind of betrayal. Lisa's lies had finally unraveled and I had no illusions anymore. She was who she was, manipulative, selfish, and unfaithful. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights of anger, tears, and regret. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I could be so blind. But I also realized I'd been protecting her, tried to be the good husband, the understanding partner. And in doing so, I overlooked the truth that had been staring me in the face. Her bitchy attitude, the lies, the secret meetings. I should have seen it sooner, but I guess I was too in love, or too naive to admit it. Now I've reached a point of acceptance. I've learned that sometimes love isn't enough to sustain a relationship built on lies. I don't hate her, at least not anymore. I pity her, honestly. She's caught in her own web of deception and she's going to have to live with that. I hope she finds some peace in whatever lies ahead of her, but I also know I can't be part of that anymore. I've decided to focus on myself now, on rebuilding my life and rediscovering what happiness really means. Looking back, I realize I've grown stronger. Not because I wanted this kind of pain, but because I had no choice but to face it. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who you really are. I've become more cautious, more aware of the masks people wear, and more determined to trust my instincts from now on. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar finds the strength to stand tall. Lies hurt, but they don't have to break you. You can rebuild, and sometimes losing someone you love is the only way to find yourself again. So here's my final takeaway. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let anyone manipulate your feelings or gaslight you into doubt. And if you find yourself in a situation where someone been unfaithful and lies have become the norm, know that you deserve better. You deserve honesty, respect, and someone who truly values you, not just someone who pretends to. It's a tough road, but trust me, walking away might be the hardest thing you ever do, but it's also the bravest. Because in the end, your happiness and integrity matter more than any lie or betrayal.